Welcome to Difficult Research. My name is Crusha Easton. I am Charles Vallow's niece, Tylee Ryan's cousin, and JJ Vallow's aunt. I wanted to put a video together about all the things that are similar in Lori and Chad Daybell's case and with Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt's case. There are quite a few things that are alarming, to say the least. So let's get started. The first one I'm going to take you to is duct tape.
Dr. Warren cut open the bag that was wrapped over JJ's head, exposing what was underneath. And underneath that white plastic bag, there was another layer of duct tape across his mouth from jawline to jawline. He then cut the duct tape away from his arm to expose his wrists and his forearms. And when he did that, there was also another level of duct tape wrapped around his wrists, so his wrists were bound this way. Through the videos and pictures that we had seen of JJ, his feet were also duct tape, layer of duct tape.
And then what happened?
He then cut the duct tape away from his level of duct tape wrapped around his wrists, so his wrists were bound this way. Still has on the red pajama pants, and his ankles are also bound with duct tape. Strip of duct tape around his mouth from jawline to jawline. There's pieces of duct tape that were attached to that. That's a picture of JJ still with the duct tape around his mouth, just a close-up picture.
And more duct tape. Ready?
911, the address of your emergency. Okay, and the phone number you're calling from. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he had just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry, and he's thirsty. His ankles are taped up, and he won't tell us why.
Okay.
But he has duct taped around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around them. I think there's a good chance he's been... Oh, and he has them around his ankles. I mean, his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Anything and everything that I did. So if I did talk to someone, she found out somehow. The amount of paranoia and fear that I had, whereas like I can't talk to anyone. And also people saw me duct taped. People saw that these things were going on. And other than like the few people that like went to Bishop and being like, hey, something's wrong, no one did anything. Closet, but it didn't have any windows. It had like a table, a chair.
And they also associated pain with children for some odd reason. Those two things, children and pain, are associated, which is bizarre and whack.
I ran away 3 times from her house. I went to a neighbor's. I went to the police. They didn't do anything.
I had a phone call yesterday with my therapist, and she taught me about truth and distortion. Mom probably talks.
I've mentioned Jodi a few times. She has a podcast called Connections with an X.
Anyway.
What did you learn?
Well, I learned about different types of pain, and we can feel pain in ways of our own choices, other people's choices, and just like random events. And it's our way to choose to see things in truth.
So me deciding that my stomach ache was Chad's fault was not seeing things.
Like if you're having an unpleasant experience or you're in pain, are you praying? Go to the list. If you're doing kind of the things that we'll list, and all they're doing is kind of changing the list a little bit, she's still the owner of the answer. Jodi is the one that holds the keys, and you have to kind of go through. Yeah, you see over time, like when she almost is smiling at pain, or that her children now are no longer real to her. Like, honestly, they have become its to her that show up in this way of like, with control, you show up in a way I want, in truth, or you're distortion. And when you're in distortion, I don't see you. You're not real to me. You're kind of cut off.
One of the children of the Franke family basically was discovered at a neighbor's house in St. George with lacerated wrists and duct tape on their feet. And they showed up dehydrated and malnourished. And later, when the police got involved, the police discovered that 2 of, I believe, the 6 children in the Franke family had been basically imprisoned in the basement of Mormon therapists.
Now she is 14. Well, about 3 months ago, she shared with us that she wanted to be called a man, not a woman. This absolutely broke me. Now here's the mother's pain. Please don't grab that statement that she wants to be called a man and a woman, not a woman. Don't grab that statement and run with it like, oh, well, she gets to decide. No. Keep it in context. This child probably was reared in an environment full of distortion. The mother had distortion, the father had distortion. So she had deception all around her. And she is very confused. And she doesn't have the ability, because she wasn't raised in truth, to make that kind of decision about who she is. She's confused about who she is. This absolutely broke me. I've never cried out to God searching for an answer more than I did in that moment. I felt that he gave me guidance. I told her that I will call her by the name I had given her as my daughter. The challenge is that her father now, quote unquote, respects her wishes, as he says, and his parenting of her conflicts so strongly with my own. I don't want her to confuse my other children, 3 children, because she now dresses differently, and I even caught her trying to use her sister's sports bra to flatten her chest. She is trying to avoid going to church as well, but hasn't pushed back too hard because I believe she knows that this is a family rule I will not bend on. Parentheses. If you live in our home, you attend church. This is the same for all of our children and our foster children we've had in the past, on parentheses. Okay, let me stop there. So this mother was going along in life, and she would glance over figuratively at her husband and say, you're doing all right? And he's going along. And then all of a sudden one day he comes to her and says, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm not going to live principled anymore. And, you might think that that's a assumption on my part. It's not. She just told me. Like, they agreed to live in the LDS religion. They agreed. So that means there were promises and covenants made to God. And he is the one that's saying, I'm going to deviate from them. So now, just like any child who's inside of a separation or a divorce, now that there's the manifestation of all the chaos that's been going on in the home, we're going to separate, we're going to divorce. And now you children are going to have very different lives. And that is a challenge for all children, because every child wants the safety of a mother and father living in truth, every one of them.
Brian Schnee joining us live after speaking exclusively with the niece of Jodi Hildebrandt.
And Brian, what did she say about watching all of this unfold?
Jesse described abuse while living with Jodi back in 2009 or so. Went into detail telling me she was tied up, duct taped, blindfolded, experienced severe isolation, severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse, among other things, such as being forced to sleep outside in the snow.
These are Jodi's words. These are Jodi's ideas. These are over decades old.
Is that why you've called Jodi the mastermind behind all of this?
And right here is Jodi Hildebrandt's Connections on X, which used to be Twitter. We educate people how to become impeccably honest, responsible, and humble, and use these necessary tools to liberate themselves of fear and disconnection. I'm surprised it does not say distortion. This woman is vile. This woman is wicked. She's vile, and she's on the church's payroll. Maybe not anymore, but she was for a very long time. It's very sickening, and it only confirms what I already believe about Tylee and JJ. Just saying.
2665 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Okay, find out her percentage for me and JJ's. Line 2660 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. She is at 0.13. I turned up the pain to 10 and placed a spiritual virus in her. He is at 99.99. What's Blake's percentage? Line 2486 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. He drew 3 crosses on the wall in his bedroom. We just finished painting over them. So decreased SI. I took my sword of light and sliced his aura vertically in several places. You should be able to now rip and burn it. Line 2481 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. I also decreased his pain tolerance to 1% and greatly increased his pain. His desire to depart is at 80%. I included it because of its references to causing pain to children. One question: do you want me to cause pain yet to those 2 3s you're riding with? Line 1876 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Probably hold off on then till we arrive. They will be mistake to deal with, but I'll text you if they start acting up and we can zap them. Line 1875 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Miserable, not mistake. Line 1872 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Sounds great. Yes, if they are going to act up, we'll at least give them a reason to scream. I love, cherish, treasure, and adore you. Line 830 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. The pain is unbearable. Line 829 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. You are right. Put me aside until things change. Yes, the pain is unbearable.
Raphael visited him and told him to follow Amy into the light. I also assured him that James would love and take care of his mommy, which he will with all of his heart and soul. Do you recall that?
I do.
You wrote that or you copied that from a text?
I cut and pasted from the iCloud, yes.
All right, and you testified today that either being low percentage or a high percentage could mean death. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
All right. Isn't it your understanding that you really don't have an understanding about what's going on here as far as these percentages go?
I disagree. I think that Chad Daybell's writings were inconsistent, but it's clear that he designated JJ and Tylee and Tammy Daybell as he had them in his death percentages, and all 3 of those individuals ended up dead.
It's not possible that this was all about fantasy, that it's more of a Dungeons and Dragons, pull out your 64-sided dice type of thing. Is that possible?
Absent the 3 people being killed, perhaps.
Okay. This is from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Quote, from Mel B. From Father, my sweet daughter, you have done well. I am very pleased. You have been prepared for every moment and surrounded by those who love you. And you indicate that Father, in that particular context, you thought was Chad Daybell. Is that right?
Yes.
It's not possible that Melanie Boudreau got her own revelation from God or Heavenly Father?
I think in the line that follows, Lori makes a reference to Chad that was a sweet message, only that Melanie Boudreau frequently referred to Chad Daybell as Dad or her father.
Yes, we might need to release a little steam when we talk. Anyway, this is the chart that checks what percentage mortals are still in their body. It worked for my friend's wife who died, my neighbor, George Bush, Stan Lee, etc. Did you recover the chart?
I did not. I looked for it extensively and could not find it.
Did you ask any other agents to look for the chart?
Yes.
And nobody could find the chart?
Nobody could find the chart.
You indicated in your testimony that Chad Daybell used religious concepts to manipulate others. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Chad Daybell purported himself to be a visionary man who could discern light and dark spirits. He claimed to receive revelations, and he would use those things to his own selfish purposes.
Manipulate a lot of people.
Yes.
Including Lori Daybell.
At times.
Thank you. No further questions.
Was there evidence that Lori Vallow manipulated Chad Daybell?
Yes.
Was there evidence that Lori Vallow manipulated Alex Cox?
Yes.
How many of those women had their children dead and buried in Chad Daybell's backyard?
None.
Nothing further.
And nothing further. Until next time, I hope we don't find any more similarities, but I also know better than to think that way. Something's going on with the church, in my opinion. Something weird, bad, evil, deceptive, whatever, distorted, whatever word you would like to apply there, feel free. I find it disturbing. I think that's why you're here, unless you're wanting to know how to turn up the pain on children. So anyways, it's very, very disturbing on many levels. I'm going to leave you with something that JJ said that stood out to me in our last New Year's Eve we had together, which was in 2018, rolling into 2019. This is about the time Lori and Melanie Gibb and David Warwick, Zolima Pastenes, Alex Cox, Melanie Boudreau, who knows whom else, David Warwick, I don't know if I said him, Lori and Chad were praying for something to happen to my Uncle Charles and my nephew JJ. It was around January 1st, which was Melanie Gibbs' birthday. Thank you for being here. If you don't mind, please hit like, share, subscribe. Let's talk about it in the comments down below. And love always wins. You guys are proof of this. Justice for Tylee, Charles, Tammy, JJ, and Joe. Android.
Who is?
So
I got it.
You can have pictures.
Yeah.
So
I got it.
You can have pictures.
Who is?
So
I got it.
You can have pictures.
Yeah.
Who is?
So
I got it.
You can have pictures.
Yeah.